as we once again enter stage 6 load shedding. More reporting, this time from the energy expert Chris Yelland today. But Jan Oberholzer is staying on at Eskom in a new role. Oberholzer retired as the Chief Operating Officer at Eskom last week. At the same time, the Electricity Minister, Dr. Ramokgopa, saying government wants to open a new bid window for renewable energy. It would be essentially described as a massive rolling bid window to bring in 15,000 megawatts of new generating capacity. Well, Chris Yelland, the Managing Director at EE Business Intelligence. Chris, good afternoon to you. Firstly, what kind of role is Oberholzer going to be playing at Eskom?
Well, it's not 100% clear yet, but from what I hear, he's going to be playing some kind of project director role in improving the performance of the Eskom fleet, particularly with respect to some of the major plant outages, such as Kusile units 1, 2, and 3. Which, as you know, are down as a result of a duct failure to the chimney stack. And also unit number 5, which is down and out, as it were, as a result of a fire. And then, of course, Medupi, unit 4, that is bringing back into service of the, of the unit that failed as a result of a hydrogen explosion. It's going to require a new generator. Apparently, a second-hand unit has been procured, a 15-year-old second-hand generator. And this is a major project. You mustn't think that this is just a case of, whipping out a generator and putting in a new one. There's been massive damage, and the new generator is probably not the same, necessarily the same size physically, different mounting arrangements. It really is a big job. And then, of course, there's Kuberg Units 1 and 2, the life extension, which is a very complex project involving the replacement of the steam generators and at the same time deep-level maintenance as well as refueling of these 2 units. And, of course, then there's possibly the delays in the decommissioning of some of the older power plants and making sure that they're in a state to continue. So that's what we're kind of hearing, but it's not certain yet. I haven't seen an official, announcement from Eskom yet, and we're watching it carefully, but this information is confirmed. That he is staying on, that is.
Sure. Is he the right person for that kind of job? I mean, when you consider his experience, and it's quite vast experience, is he the kind of person who Eskom should be using for this?
Well, it really, I think, does focus on the work that he's been doing over the last several years at Eskom. He is an engineer by background and has very significant experience in this kind of work, project work. And I think, obviously Eskom have asked him to stay on and contracted with him to stay on. And I'm sure they would know absolutely best as to whether he was the right person, and they wouldn't, get him to stay on if he wasn't the right person. I'm sure of that.
There's the idea coming from the Electricity Minister, and Chris, I don't know if he actually has the legal power to make this happen, but he seems to be pushing it, of a massive rolling bid window, basically a bid window that would not be closed to encourage more bids by independent power producers. 15,000 megawatts. Is that going to get a lot of interest from independent power producers? Are there even enough independent power producers to get to 15,000 megawatts?
Well, it is a massive program, and presumably it will not just all happen at once, but in a phased manner. It is huge, massive, on the world scale. And it's going to have many challenges, and you're quite right in pointing out, does he have the legal authority to initiate this program? Because technically, right now, at this point, new generation capacity, those legal powers are in the hands of Minister Gwedi Mantashe. But I presume that they are talking to each other. Certainly hope they are, and they say they are. And one would hope that there's clear consensus on these matters. That this is what is needed, but it is a massive program. It's going to require particular effort, and most important, of course, is the the grid capacity, the ability to connect, these installations to the grid. Because if you're talking about 15,000 megawatt, you're not talking about one installation. You're talking about many, many installations. Typically, these installations are in the region of 200 megawatts. So you're talking about a lot of connections to the grid. We know that there are grid capacity constraints.
I've seen some commentary that it may be a mistake to have such a big window at one time, or a bid window that stays open. And as I understand it, the argument goes like this, that if you have quite a limited bid window, you create competition among the bidders, and that means that they're forced to keep prices down. If you keep it open, if it's so big at 15,000 megawatts, they all know they're going to win, so there's no incentive to come in at a cheap price. And that means that you'll end up paying more over time for electricity. Is that going to be a problem?
Look, I would agree with that fully, you wouldn't want to have all of this simultaneously going out for bidding, because it will, I think, mean the prices that you get will be higher. Its experience has shown, not just in South Africa, but globally, that these bid windows need to be phased to create intense competition at each bid window. And in any case, you can't do all this kind of work simultaneously, and therefore it makes sense to do it over a phased period. But I think the competition argument is very real.
You made the point about the transmission network. I mean, this is a huge issue, isn't it? And the only way around it, I presume, is that every time we close down a coal-fired power station is to have your 200 megawatt solar installations, many of them, literally in the same places where that grid capacity is already. And I realize that Mpumalanga doesn't have quite the same solar radiation, the same quality of sunlight as you get in the Northern Cape. Does it really matter? I mean, should we not just build some of these solar-powered installations where the coal-fired power stations are now? Would that be a sort of cheaper way around it, even if we didn't get quite the same quality of sunlight?
Look at the kind of scale that has been talked about, 15,000 megawatts. One's going to have to look at spreading this around the whole country. There is grid capacity available, but it's not necessarily in the very best places. But the sun also shines in Limpopo, in Free State, in Northwest Province, in KwaZulu-Natal, the way the bidding processes have operated in the past is to allow all the bidders to be chasing the best spots. It may be better now to actually have geographically spaced out bidding processes, which actually force, or you allocate maybe a certain amount of capacity to the different provinces where there is grid capacity available. We've seen that the last, bid window 6 really failed because the bidding process was encouraging the least cost bids, at the point of generation. So this meant that everybody was chasing the least cost opportunities because those are going to be the winners. And now we need to look at it in a different way. Yes, you may, by having these geographically spatial bidding processes, not necessarily achieve the very lowest prices possible, but at least you have a project that can succeed and reach financial closure, even though they might be a slightly higher price, but it's still good prices, not necessarily as low as they could go, but still good.
Chris Yelland, as always, really appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. And of course, the energy expert talking there about some of the problems that we've seen.